a murder, don't need no hook.
Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is the Hangout. And according to YouTube's new metrics, this is now the Comics Are Dope live podcast. We do this every Thursday, most Thursdays, about 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So if you're watching this on the replay, I very much appreciate it. That's dedication on your part. But hopefully you can join us live one of these days. Like I said, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Today, we are talking about what we would all do or what we think we can do to make comics better, like to make this hobby more enjoyable. So that's our main topic tonight. But of course, we're going to go through some comic reviews. We're going to have some fun. By the way, we're streaming this live both on YouTube and inside the K Squad on Facebook, my private community for people who love comics. And so links to all of that is in the description of like every other video besides this one. By the way, if you are on Facebook, there is like some weird thing you have to do to tell people or to give Facebook permission to post your comments or your name next to your comment. But I do see your comment. So shout out to you guys. Bunkmaster B is here. He says he can't wait to find out if making comics better don't need no hook. It don't. Menterprises is here as well. So yeah, if you're here live, say what's up in the comments so that I know you are here. And speaking of people saying what's up, I got to give some shout outs myself. So first to the channel family, those of you who donate to make this content possible, I appreciate you all. Thanks to the channel family. If you see them in the chat, their names come up in green in the comments, and they've got, I think the most recent thing is Robin, the Robin symbol. But yeah, thanks to the channel family for making this live stream possible. And another huge shout out to Organic Price Books, our official sponsor. OPB is the best place to go online for collected editions, like I'm going to show you here in just a minute. They are having their spring sale right now. So if you go to bjkicks.link/OPB sale, you'll find savings on a ton of in-stock items that is ready to be sent to you ASAP as soon as you order. So thanks to OPB for sponsoring the Hangout. And here we go. We got some more people in here. My man Charles is here. What's up, Charles? How you doing, man? Ryder Battle says, greetings, travelers. What's up, Ryder? What's good in your neck of the woods? Man, look, Carson, I can't call it. I am still getting over a cold. I'm not quite as bad as I was during the pull list video that came out yesterday or 2 days ago. I am on the tail end. If I had to estimate, I'm somewhere between 90 and 95%. But man, it's been a rough week. Like Tuesday, I had a headache from heck. It was rough. I didn't even finish my dinner Tuesday night. That's how much my head hurt. I woke up Wednesday morning and ate spaghetti for breakfast. But now I'm doing a little bit better. Someone on Facebook says he's pretty sure he has opinions on comics. I'm not sure who this is. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess it might be JC. Oh, it's Javon. What's up, Javon? So yeah, man, I'm very excited that we could even do this. I don't know why I never thought to do this on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Comic says this topic is really broad, so I'm interested to see how we are going to tackle it. Yeah, I guess I can give a disclaimer. Actually, I'll save the disclaimer for when we're about to jump into discussion. First, let's talk about, let's go into a segment, recent pickups. Let's do recent pickups because we didn't stream last week. It's been a little while. There's been a lot of stuff added to the collection since I last saw you guys. So one thing I wanted to shout out, I can't remember if I showed you guys this or not. I don't remember exactly when it came in, but it's been within the last 2 weeks. But this is the Complete Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, the hardcover box set. So you may have seen the news that Don Rosa posted that basically two of the stories collected in this volume Disney's not going to allow to be reprinted anymore. So the only way to get the complete Life at Times of Scrooge McDuck is going to be to find one of these older volumes while they're still in print or still available. So I was able to grab that one on Amazon for like 60 as opposed to the big giant edition that came out a couple or last year for like $250. Listen, man, I don't need an absolute size or larger Scrooge McDuck book, but I am interested in the story. My man Chris Balga speaks very highly of it. So I was like, all right, I'll grab that. I had a gift card, so it worked out. It worked out. Uh, finish my word call just in time. I'll let you count the entendres. That's funny. So yeah, Bunkmaster B is happy with his big giant deluxe Life and Times Duck book. Yeah, I know people that like ducks are crazy, or I've never met a person who like was a duck fan that wasn't like a huge duck fan. So like Omar, Bunkmaster B, my man Chris Balga, who goes to Disney World like every year with his family. Like I hung out with him for Heroes Con last year, and he's got like Disney memorabilia all over his house. Everybody that I talk to that loves this stuff is a diehard like that. Maybe not to the Disney memorabilia extent, but yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to be able to experience the story, and I figured if there's only one way to collect the story, then I'm gonna collect the story. You do know Darkwing is a duck, right? It's in the name. I so that's funny because as a kid, I loved Darkwing Duck. Um, and I watched like every episode all the time, right? And of course, Darkwing features Launchpad McQuack, who also is a main character in the DuckTales cartoon. And so when I would turn on the TV and DuckTales was on and I saw Launchpad, I was like, oh, I'm obviously going to love this show. And for whatever reason, DuckTales didn't really click with me like that. And so for that reason, I never was super interested in Scrooge McDuck. But now I'm an adult, and I find that when I revisit things as an adult, I appreciate them more. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, I got the complete Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. And then I got an insane donation from our channel sponsor, OPB. Uh, because, like I said, they've got their spring sale going on. So here are a bunch of titles that'll be up for grabs in their spring sale, like the Batman Dark Victory trade, which I guess this will eventually become a giveaway prize whenever I start doing giveaways again. Because giveaways are like they take a lot of logistics, and I don't have a ton of time. But basically, the sequel to Long Halloween there, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Some more trades. Batman Black and White. This is volume 5 technically. And this is a bunch of stuff that came out in the last 2-3 years or so. I remember buying there's a few different covers of this that I bought, and there's a story in here by John Ridley featuring the next Batman. And here we are, turned right to it with art by Olivier Coipel. Batman Black and White. I mean, I'm not gonna spend a million years talking about all the recent pickups, but one other thing I do want to highlight though. One second. This one right here. This is Savage Avengers, the Omnibus by Jerry Dugan. Something Zurcher, Mike Deodato Jr., and some other names that I don't exactly recall right off the bat. But collecting the full Savage Avengers issues 1 through 28, the first annual, the 0 issue, and some other stuff as well from Free Comic Book Day 2019. Fun fact, Free Comic Book Day 2019 was the day I got into comics. 4th anniversary coming up. And I remember that I grabbed the Savage Avengers Free Comic Book Day book. And I was like, that's an interesting team. We got Wolverine, we got Conan, we got the Punisher, Venom. And then two people I didn't recognize at the time that I now know to be Elektra and Brother Voodoo or Dr. Voodoo, depending on, you know, when you came into sensibilities and whatnot. Anyway, Savage Avengers is like a super, like, just action-packed, gory, violent book. The quote on the fronts from AIPT says, Savage Avengers offers insanely cool, unbridled violence for the heavy metal crowd. This book, though, because Marvel does not own the rights to Conan anymore, cannot be reprinted. And so, fun fact, this cover, this is the standard cover. This cover is already out of stock and out of print. The direct market variant is on its way there. There's like 200 copies left in existence, and when they're gone, they're gone. It's already sold out at in-stock trades. It's on its way out at OPB. So if you want to order it, order it. This is not to pressure you into ordering it. I'm just saying this is one of those books that was on your wish list and you hadn't quite gotten around to it yet. Yeah, I guess this is pressuring you. But Savage Avengers. And there's some other stuff, but we'll talk about that here in we won't talk about it on this stream. We'll talk about it later on the channel. So those were the recent pickups, and now it is time for the review of the week. So fun fact, I have not read a ton of comics this week, mostly because I've been under the weather, and then busy. It's been a busy week at work, and it's not going to get any easier if I'm being honest with you. But the books that I did read, where did I put them? All right. Well, I don't have to like pick up the book to show you what I read. I read the Milestone 30th Anniversary Special, issue number 1. It's a one shot, so there's no need to say issue number 1, but I still do because they put it on the book. But it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was definitely a Milestone book for Milestone fans. Okay, it's actually bugging me that I don't have the book in my hand. So where did I put it? This is my stack of comics from this week. This is my stack of comics from last week. I may have taken it into my bedroom because I was reading some books in my bedroom. All right. Anyway. Yeah, so the Milestone 30th Anniversary Special, there's 3 stories in it. So the first story is basically, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's basically a sequel to Worlds Collide, the event from the 90s, which I guess in itself is a deep cut because it's not like you can really read it anywhere except the Milestone Compendium that came out a couple weeks ago, volume 2. But yeah, so in this story, basically the Milestone heroes from today's Milestone stories meet up with the Milestone heroes from the 90s, and it's really good. They have a very compelling reason for being able to join up. Like I said, it's basically a sequel to the Worlds Collide crossover. So if you know how that worked back in the day, then you'll have a decent idea of how it worked here. What was cool was it was giving us a story, and it's like a nice, fun, like one and done story, but it opens up some other possibilities. But it kind of was basically a celebration of everything the Milestone's done in the last 30 years. And so you got the old school explaining the differences in their world from the new school and vice versa. And there are a couple of things that are established. Like, for example, they established that they've had a Black president in the current Milestone universe, which basically means they're in our reality. So that's an interesting tidbit. And there are a few other things that I won't spoil because I think all the things that I'm thinking of are things that a Milestone fan would appreciate, and I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't read it. But that story was well done. Lots of cool homages to different Milestone creators, lots of little Easter eggs and stuff like that. So that was that. Second story in the book is a story by Stephanie Williams, which is basically like telling like a day in the life of Rocket after she becomes Milestone or becomes Icon in the original Milestone timeline. And that was a pretty cool story as well. And then the third story is the Static Beyond story that was highly anticipated. If you've seen that episode of Justice League Unlimited titled Epilogue, where Batman Beyond basically comes and explains like how the end of the world went and how Static became like the greatest superhero ever and all these different things. And there's some other things that Terry McGinnis learns about himself at that in that episode. But anyway, this is kind of in that timeline, in that reality. And that was a really cool story as well, just kind of showcasing the power of Static, written and drawn by Nick Draper Ivey. Really enjoyed that. And then there's also a preview of the Static young adult graphic novel that'll be coming out here soon. And I thought that was really cool as well. So all in all, I enjoyed the Milestone 30th anniversary special. I'm probably going to do a separate video about it, about the main story and how it connects to Worlds Collide and kind of breaking down all the Easter eggs. And then I'll probably do, or I should say, I want to do another story just focused on Static and the level up that he's gotten over the last like year or so of publishing, including that short story in the anthology. But Milestone 30th anniversary was good. Honestly, to me, it was great, but I'm biased. So that's that. And then the other book I read was this. This is Ben Mortara or Mortara. Mortara sounds cool to me. Ben Mortara and the Thieves of the Golden Table. This is written by, gosh, is it Arnon Shore? With art by, I think it's Brittany Kalman. I guess I can just read the names from the book. Wow, I was wrong. So Arnon Shore is the writer. The art is by Kat Bowman, or Bauman. And I mean, if you couldn't tell by the cover, this is certainly an homage to, a play off of the Indiana Jones franchise. And this book very much reads like an Indiana Jones film. Fun fact, I am not like the biggest Indiana Jones fan. Like I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark and not the one with Short Round. My wife really likes whichever Indiana Jones like there was where they're doing like the weird like Satan ritual thing. I don't know. Anyway, point is, I didn't grow up on Raiders of the Lost Ark and that whole like franchise, but when I see that it's on TV, it's fun. And this is a fun book. We establish who Ben Mortara is. He kind of gets commissioned to go on a sort of adventure to find an artifact. They go through, they encounter some trouble. They get, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's got all the twists and turns that you would expect to see in an Indiana Jones film. It's got some humor. Like there's a great moment where there's a drone that he's trying to like knock out of the sky. So he steals a soda can from a dude and he throws it, right? And on the next page, you're thinking he's going to hit whatever his target is. And let's just say he doesn't hit his target. And it was just funny. This was a fun book. I really enjoyed this. This will probably end up in my top 3 reads of the week. Even though I got a whole stack to keep going through. So Ben Mortara, The Thieves of the Golden Table from Source Point Press. This is one of those examples of just a book that was fun to read. I didn't have to worry about a bunch of continuity. I understood the concept before I even opened the book. And even as I did, it wasn't like crazy predictable or anything. It was just a nice, fun little escape. So yeah, I'll pause a little bit. So, Comics Joe says, my pull is getting so big I can't remember most of my comics from issue to issue. Is it me or are our writers not adding a lot of plot here lately? You know, that's something we can talk about when we get back to the tonight's topic. Tim just finished the 30th anniversary book, couldn't put it down. It's good. It's definitely good. Like I said, if you're a Milestone fan, you'll love it. If you're not, your mileage will vary, but it's a good and a well executed book either way. For all the books from the last few weeks, all I've read was Power Rangers 106, and that one came out yesterday. Funkmaster B has been lagging. Comics Joe says, been watching a lot of videos of Omnibus collectors doing a percentage of what they have and have not read in their collection. What's your percentage? Let's just say it ain't high. If we factor in my single issues, I've read a lot. Like the vast majority of all the single issues I've ever purchased, I've read. The Omnis are a whole different story. I buy the collected editions and I don't read them anytime soon. The idea for me is that I want to collect all the stories that I think are just going to be super epic and amazing. And at the time when I'm able to, like, quit my full-time job, whether that's retirement at 65 or if it's earlier, due to the power of the internet and side hustling and stuff, then, I'll have more time to read that stuff and I'll kind of have my collection to fall back on as a hobby. And I may slow down on single issues and stuff at that point. So yeah, let's see. Joey to know I'm starring all of the comments about what we can improve, and I'm gonna come back to them in a little bit. Skip says, I've been reading so many comics, weeklies, 2 comic book clubs. My goodness, that's a lot of comics to read. It's a lot of comics to read. Comics Joe says, nice to see Milestone get some attention. I rarely hear YouTubers talk about Milestone. Yeah, I mean, it's a niche. Comics are a niche, and to be, a Milestone fan puts you in a niche of a niche, perhaps a triple niche, if we're being honest. So I don't anticipate like Milestone getting a ton of coverage, but whatever I can do to sort of put a megaphone up and shout, about the greatness from the mountaintops, then I'll certainly do that. Blaine hasn't gotten any of his pulls in from the last couple of weeks. Oh man, well, that means you get some cool binge sessions coming your way. I kind of like letting issues stack up a little bit, especially if it's a Christopher Priest book. But yeah, so let's see. We typically do a segment here called In the News. I haven't done it in a while. And so I want to check real quick just to see if there is anything in the news worth talking about. Has anything fun been announced? Let's look at AIPT. I always forget that comic book news sites are really just like movie news sites. I keep being reminded of just how much comic book journalism just kind of sucks. Maybe it's just a slow news cycle. So, all right, well, no need to belabor that. Why is this on comicbook.com? KFC officially unveils its first ever chicken nuggets. That's actually really surprising that KFC is just now selling chicken nuggets. The Last Ronin is getting a video game adaptation at some point in the future. So that's interesting. And yeah, Facebook user says live on Facebook now. Oh, that's Danny. Yeah. Yeah, I just decided to try it out just because StreamYard has always had that functionality and I've never used it. So I just wanted to see, how much more engagement we could get if we did it on Facebook too. So, which of the new Dawn of DC soft reboot series are you looking forward to? What I am excited about is the Shazam book, and that's mostly because it's Mark Waid and Dan Mora. I'm excited about Green Arrow because I've never read a Green Arrow book, at least not as an ongoing. When I got into comics, I think Green Arrow by Benjamin Percy was already done. And yeah, there hasn't been a Green Arrow book since I got into comics that I can remember. And those are probably it. Superboy Man of Tomorrow is on FOC this weekend. It's not really a Dawn of DC book. It was the round robin contest winner. I'm always down for a fun Connor story, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, not a ton of stuff. Comics Joe says, have you collected any of the Alex Ross villain covers? I picked up Black Cat, Kang, Juggernaut, Ultron. My wallet belongs to Alex Ross for a few months. Nah, I'm staying away from the timeless variants this time around because as some of the homies know who like to make fun of me, I tend to be an all or nothing type of person. If I start to collect something, then I want all of it, like all of it. And so trying to collect all the Alex Ross covers will make you, bankrupt. And so I just didn't buy any of them. Are you checking out the new Superman run, the one drawn by Jamal Campbell? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. Issue 1 was great. Issue 2 is actually the next up on my reading pile, but I haven't read it yet. It just came out this week. But I loved issue 1. Oh, you know what? Speaking of recent pickups and speaking of my man Danny, I kind of forgot 2 big recent pickups that were right here. So let's talk about them real quick. First up, I just got my Kickstarter rewards for backing Ace Blade issue 6, Cream, part 1. Cash rules everything around me. I got mine signed by the creator, my man Danny Quick himself, at the Ace Blade on TikTok, most famous TikToker I know. And it also came with, I don't know which issue this is, but I got a blank sketch cover. And I don't remember backing for a blank sketch cover, so I think Danny is issuing a challenge. That must be what's going on. Let's get this out of here. This is Ace Blade issue 1, issue 6. Vigilante Complex part 1. So this is issue 1. Very cool. Second edition of issue 1 with a blank purple sketch cover. That's dope. So, yeah, man. Charles says he got his Ace Blade and Lumberjacks. I'm jealous. I haven't gotten my Lumberjacks yet. I backed for, was it issue 3? I don't remember which issue it was. So I'm waiting for that Kickstarter as opposed to buying them a la carte. But this came with a preview of Harlem's Renaissance #1. And I'm ready for this campaign. This is exciting, like genuinely exciting. This chick just realizes she has superpowers out of nowhere and is like, wait, what? And then starts using them like immediately. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And then the last recent pickup was one that actually ties in really well with the book I just reviewed. This is a poster from the original Milestone and DC Worlds Collide event, crossover event from 1994. 94 is when Worlds Collide happened. Found this from a seller on eBay who was based in Canada. It's so crazy when you find like different comic book artifacts and it's like, how is this preserved so well? This is paper, and this is a 30-year-old piece of paper, my guy. But yeah, so Worlds Collide, and this is exciting. I collect like just whatever I can find with that Milestone logo on it. I grab it. So that's the latest edition, the latest piece to the collection. Tim says, "Whoa, word, frame that kicks. Word. Yeah, that's I'm excited that I have this. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff that I want to frame that I've gotten in the last, 2 years since I've been in this office. But the plan for this room was always to move out of it in a really short time frame. And so a lot of the memorabilia that I have, it's like just packed up because it's gonna just go on the walls in the new spot whenever we get the new spot. Yeah, Comics Joe says that's my problem. Thankfully, my shop is holding all of them, and I'm picking up one issue each week until I collect them all. Hey, man, however you can fit it into your budget, comics responsibly. All right. So we spent 30 minutes on comic book reviews, fun banter, and all that. But let's go ahead and get to the topic at hand. Today, I wanted to have this discussion about what we can do to make comics better. Um, I think comics are great. Each week, there is a book that I like really, really enjoy. But if I'm honest, right, most of the books that I read, I feel like they're fine. They're they're okay to good, but it's not like every book I read just knocks my socks off. Um, and I feel like a lot of people are in that same sort of boat where it's like, especially if you're reading comics on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, or following series monthly, you kind of just get caught in a lull, and it's like, oh yeah, comics. And I'm like, but what can we do to like make comics like just exciting, like just awesome all the time? So that's what I'm interested in, like what your ideas are to make comics better. Um, so the disclaimer that I was going to give, right? Because there are a lot of different avenues we can take this conversation, but what I do want to make sure I'm clear on is like this isn't necessarily uh one of those culture war conversations. Like I'm not interested in like stoking any like weird political debate. Um, because I think there's enough comics out there for everyone. Like no matter what stuff you like even if you are like, if I ever see another black person in a comic again, I'm gonna scream. Right? There's enough comics like for you too. So I'm not really gonna entertain like comic comments that go over the line on those types of issues. But with all that, we can have a very respectful conversation about what do you think, is wrong with comics? What do you think could be done better? Where do you think the major comics corporations are fumbling the bag a little bit? And what could they do to make you more excited as a reader and lover of comics? That is my question. That's a tough question to attack on, says my man Tim. And you guys have been talking about it a lot. So, um, Joey to know says, "What's up, dude? I feel like a way to make comics better is making event comics non-yearly and not having a ludicrous amount of tie-ins." Yeah, man. Event fatigue is real. Event fatigue is absolutely a thing, and it does feel like we just go from one event straight into another, and the publishers don't steer clear of each other. The publishers don't even steer clear of themselves. And so, like, I know when I was reading comics, what 2020 ish, um, we had Death Metal and Ten of Swords going on basically around the same time. And there was, first of all, the main event is like 7 issues for Death Metal, but there are like 40 Death Metal tie-ins. It was like half a short box. Um, and that was wild. That was wild to me. Um, and so anyway, I went all in on Death Metal, and I kind of suffered as a result of it, because Death Metal was good. It was fine. But after Death Metal was done, I had so much stuff like to catch up on, because X-Men was dropping 3 issues a week for the Ten of Swords event. And then after Ten of Swords was over, what was it? King in Black came shortly after that. And it just seems like at both of the big two, there are so many events. Like we had Inferno, right? We had the 4 issues of Inferno, and that was supposed to like usher us into some new X-Men stuff. And then we had the 10 Lives and 10 Deaths of Wolverine, and that was 10 weeks of Wolverine coming out weekly. At the same time as that, we had Spider-Man doing the Beyond Saga, and Spider-Man was basically a weekly book at that time. And then at the same time as that, we had, over on the DC side, we had Detective Comics. Detective Comics was basically a weekly book during that whole Tower event. Maybe it was bi-weekly, but either way, there were a whole lot of issues of Detective Comics coming out by Mariko Tamaki. And all of that, I think that's 4 things I just listed. was happening like at the exact same time. And it was so hard to get caught up. And then it was like all of a sudden comics feels like a chore rather than like a fun hobby, a fun little thing to escape. And I think part of it is like, for me personally, I always feel like I got to read everything, right? Like I got to know what's going on everywhere. It's so hard for me to be like, yeah, you know what? I'll read the Wikipedia post when this is all said and done. I'll watch some YouTuber summarize it, and then I'll decide if that sounds interesting enough for me to read or not read. And so I get caught in that sort of event rat race a lot. So that's definitely something that I think is helpful. Comics Joe, Spider-Man Beyond was weekly, and Detective Comics, and 10 Lives and Deaths. It killed me. Yeah, man. Yeah. Chris says Black Label at DC's been putting out some stellar creator works. I wish Marvel would try to bring that to their line of comics. Yeah, for as much as I buy Marvel books, I feel fairly insulated in my Marvel reading, right? Like I read the X-Men, and honestly, X-Men is enough. Like that's a universe of its own with a million titles, it feels like. But um yeah, to that point, I don't really get a lot of like Marvel books, and it does feel like it's hard to know when to jump in to Marvel books. They keep relaunching titles, but it's like even their relaunched minis are continuations of the minis that came before. And so it's like you'll be reading, I don't know, what's Doctor Strange #1. Yeah, Doctor Strange #1 came out this week and it's a new #1, but it's kind of a sequel to that Strange series that came out, you know, 6 issues ago. And that was a sequel to the death of Doctor Strange, right? So like there's all this story happening and it's all in the same continuity. Even when they try to like reset and have a fun entry point, it's not really an entry point. Yeah, the X family of titles might as well be their own imprint. That's kind of how I treat it. I read a decent amount of X-Men. I don't buy every X book, and I try to read, Spider-Man, but they don't want me to read Spider-Man apparently. Although Miles is really good. Comic Book Report says they did have Marvel Knights and Max. Yeah, yeah, I get that. My biggest problem as a Marvel reader, I read my comics like I watch the movies. I just want to know everything, but that's on me because everything ain't for everyone. Yeah, I think that is that's maybe just a problem with the fandom in itself, like because we want to connect the dots behind the scenes. We want to be able to understand and pick up on the deep cuts and all this different stuff, but it's like everything isn't for everyone, and it's not sustainable for everyone to read everything. Um, or at least for one person to try to read everything all the time. Also dislike the DC shoehorns additional stories in the back in Batman to justify a price increase. I mean, they're fine stories, but please stop. Yeah, I definitely complained about the backup stories. I'm not complaining as much about the backups in Chip Zdarsky's Batman, only because I feel like they serve the main story. But I mean, that's really the only backup stories that I'm reading. And DC's been doing it in a lot of books lately. Only event I remember reading and enjoying was Batman the Joker War. I did enjoy the Joker War. To add to Joey Dido's point, ASM like by Wells was nothing special, and it was starting to get interesting. Then Dark Web came in and AXE, Avengers X-Men Eternals, and just ruined Spider-Man for me for months. Yeah, Dark Web came out of nowhere and was not necessary at all. And honestly, I don't feel like AXE was really necessary either, but it's kind of ushered in the whole Sins of Sinister. So, you know. Let's see what other suggestions did we get here. Comics can be improved by telling the story in one title and not making us read title B, C, D, and E for the complete story. Yeah. I remember that. I remember being frustrated by that in Dark Crisis. Like in the Dark Crisis, which the main series again was 7 issues, and there were these one shots and like the Worlds Without and the Dark Crisis something, you know, So, basically Dark Crisis is like 15 issues with all the tie-ins or whatever. But there was like a Swamp Thing one shot where they like basically solved the whole mystery of what was going on with the pariah and like how they can actually fix it and save the day. And all that happened in this random one shot. And then you come back into issue 7, and they're like, oh yeah, if you want to know how we got to this point, go back and read that one shot. And it's like, dog, like, I'm reading the main story. Like, just put the important stuff in the main story, right? uh, how do you how to make comics better? Where to begin? How long you got? Answer to the prompt: we can write better comics. Oh, Skip says he fixed his own issue and started following creators more than being loyal to big publishers. So I'm already good. They're the ones with the issue. They got to find out. They got to figure out better ways to get my money. That's fair. That's fair. And we've had this conversation, Skip and I have, because I'm newer to comics. I tend to fall for like the little whatever tricks there are to fall for more often, because I'm the one like, oh, there's finally a Green Arrow #1. Okay, cool. Now I get to read a Green Arrow book. Oh, there's a new Spider-Man. Okay, maybe this will be the fun Spider-Man book that I've been looking for. Oh, there's another Batman book. Oh, okay, maybe I won't fall for this one because there's always a new Batman book every single week. But that's how they tend to get me. And because I'm newer, a lot of stuff I don't have that same rapport with creators. I'm starting to build it. Like, I know enough about Tom Taylor to know that if he's writing an Elseworlds book outside of main continuity, not an ongoing, that's probably a book that I want to buy personally. I'm trying to think who else do I have like that type of thing with. Artists more so. Like, I'm like, all right, what I don't know what Dan Moore is drawing in Once and Future, but it'll probably look good. So I'm fine taking the chance on that. And there's certain like names. And then, I buy milestone stuff, but that's like a super fandom type thing. But yeah. Marvel's Omnibus need to have thicker pages. These things are thinner than single issue comics. Yeah, man. I mean, for me, I'm not like, I don't remember the old days of thick comic pages. As long as it's not falling apart, like, that's fine with me. My biggest problem. Oh, you said that already. Or are we at the part of the show where we talk about how to make comics better? Easy. Make them all Power Rangers and make them all by Daniel Warren Johnson. That's funny. Tayshawn says, super late. What's up, everybody? Mr. Negative says, I think distribution is a huge issue for comics to do better. Oh, that's interesting. So the way I approached the conversation was like, how can the comic industry make comics more interesting to you? Right. It's basically the premise of my question. But you're like, well, how can we like uplift the industry? And for that, yes, I think this is a big issue. Distribution. For comics to do better, they have to be more accessible to kids. And not even just kids, but like people. Like, I didn't buy my first comic till I was like 29, right? And obviously I knew comic books existed, but I had like never seen a comic shop. I just hadn't. And so the fact that like you never see a comic shop unless your parent like, exposes you to it until you're like an adult, well, by then you've already built in your habits, right? You're already playing video games or driving cars or going, to the movies, dating people and stuff like that. So it's like comics is not something that a lot of people are going to like sort of grow up with if we don't put them in places where those people already are. So like the Walmart packs and stuff like that, I think are a good idea. John Styles says reduce the price. Yeah. That would make it more accessible to people. I don't know if that would like make the stories any better or make people just buy a whole bunch more. Piggybacking off what Mixed Negative said, books should exist outside of comic shops again, or at the bare minimum, market to more to the masses than they are. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that like the biggest film studio in the world is the Marvel Studios, and you know, people that watch Marvel movies barely know that Marvel comics exist. That's kind of wild to me. I think they could do a better job of, you know, raising the general awareness of uh or about comics. Let's see. You'd be surprised at how much of the stuff people are complaining about are editorially and financially mandated. This comes from Javon. Um, yeah, yeah. I've get into these conversations, and I can never like share the stuff that I have conversations about. But the more I start talking to comic creators, right, whether they're writers or artists, there's always some little thing that I'm like, yeah, yeah, da, da, da. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah. Actually, so and so told me to do that, and I'm like, huh, why? Which brings up one of the ideas that I had. I'm wondering, like, if having like so-called like superstar editors back in the comic book, uh the big two, right, like bringing back like the days of like a Jim Shooter or like a Denny O'Neil or whoever, right, the editors who had just as much of a name as the creators, who you knew were kind of like keeping a story in a certain bounds, right? um I wonder if editors sort of taking charge of an office and really like I don't know. I mean, because we still have editors, we still have group editors, right? Like I can name the guy who's the editor on all the Spider-Man comics, right? Um, and it's not like that's leading to better stories, but I don't know. I feel like if editors were superstars in the way that editors were superstars in the past, maybe maybe comics are better in that regard. Charles says movies and comics should reflect each other. Yeah, I agree, right? Like I talked about this in my Black Panther review, but when I saw the Black Panther film, I wanted to read Black Panther comics, but like they just weren't congruent. It didn't make sense. Like I couldn't rectify what I saw on the page with what I saw in the films. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just wait till a book that sounds like this movie comes out. Had to jump in and out of the live. Would love to have less event tie-ins mess with the arcs of other titles. That's true. Like if I decide not to read an event, don't interrupt my book that I was reading that had nothing to do with this event with your event, right? Like although I very much enjoyed the Spider-Man tie-in to Judgment Day. I enjoyed that Spider-Man tie-in. It was not necessary to a Spider-Man story at all. At all. And I think we all agree. It seems like that's one of the bigger answers, one of the more common answers here tonight, is that the crossover events interfere with other runs and it makes the books inconsistent. And inconsistency is the biggest problem. I think the X-Men office is probably the biggest culprit of that. I've been reading um I've been reading Benjamin Percy's X-Force and Benjamin Percy's Wolverine, right? Like the story from issue 1 of X-Force and issue 1 of Wolverine has been good, except everything kind of fell off the rails with Ten of Swords, that first big crossover event. And then it was like, all right, they kind of like tried to get back to where they were going, but then there was the Hellfire Gala. And then after that, I can't remember what came after. Oh, Inferno got announced. We kind of built up to that. We did the X 10 Lives, 10 Deaths thing. Cool. But then all of a sudden we had the AXE. We had just so many events just in the X-Men office. And it felt like every time X-Force got good or every time Wolverine got good, all of a sudden we had to like take a break, deal with the fallout from some event, and then build up to or transition back into the story that was being told. Right now, X-Force and Wolverine are really good. But like it didn't really start being that great until like issue 26 and 28, respectively, to me. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Let's see. Mr. Negative says, I agree. The editors we do have are not known as storyteller. Spider-Man editor isn't known for any stories he's written, so why should anyone believe the book he's on is good? Comics and movies can't reflect each other because the books come out way more frequently than the movies. So if you're asking creators to maintain the status quo of a film until the next film drops, that's a good point. That's a good point. I just there's got to be a more symbiotic relationship between the comics and the films. It can't just be that the comics exist for the film to mine stories out of years later, because it kind of, I don't know, to me, it makes the comics less enjoyable as a comic because you can't use that same sort of pacing and stuff that you do in the movie in a comic. Um, so like, I don't know, and maybe it's just when a movie comes out, you do a mini series or you do like a big one shot issue or something and let that be that. And then kind of, you know, there's great, classic stories for every character. There's great classic stories that every movie is based on. So when Black Panther comes out, there's got to be somebody or something that says, yeah, go read the Reggie Hudlin run. By the way, if you like this movie, you'll love that. Go to a comic shop. They'll have it because we just put out a trade. Like they release the stuff. It's just like they forget to communicate it. And it's like when they release this stuff, they repackage it with the movie photos on the cover. And the comic fans are like, yeah, I already got that. And it just sits there until Free Comic Book Day where it gets marked down. Like nothing happens, you know? Speaking of talking with creators about issues in the comics medium, I was talking with Ben Temple Smith, and he was saying it's accessibility and subject matter. There's such a saturation of superhero books that people who are looking for things like sports stories or teen stories don't inherently know where to look. Yeah, that's true. I think one thing that manga does, even though I don't read manga, you see a lot of manga about a lot of different subjects, like, slice of life and so on, right? That's why something like this all of a sudden is super refreshing. It's not that this is anything groundbreaking, it's just different than what we have now, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. That's a fair point. There are already trades and stuff available. It's on Marvel and the comic shop owners to point potential new readers into the right jumping in point. Yeah, yeah. I think it's more so on the publishers than the shops because I mean, if you don't shop at a shop, like how much is how well is the local comic shop going to be able to market itself to the general public? Some of them, will they've got social media departments. They've got a clerk that also is savvy with social media. Some of them do like digital engagement, live shows and stuff like that. But honestly, man, like there's not there's not a ton that a comic shop owner can do to get the general public interested in the comic, except for events like Free Comic Book Day, and that's more so kind of fronted by the publishers and the distributor. You know, Arnon Shore is here, the writer of Ben Mortara. I've been talking about. He says he's flattered and thanks, and we got his name right, so that is awesome. Um, I really enjoyed this book, like in all seriousness. So yeah, man. Um, these are good. This is a good discussion. What else do you guys think we can do to make comics more interesting, just like on the face? Um, I'm about to hide my face here in a second, or here for a second, I should say, because this cold is catching up with me. Where we at? All right. Let me know. Y'all keep throwing the comments while I handle some business. All right. Tayshawn says, I explained the story and plot of Many Deaths of Layla Starr to my wife and she was sold. More non-superhero stories should be highlighted for those with an aversion to superheroes and comics. That's fair. That's fair. I feel like superheroes definitely dominate the conversation, right? Like if I go to previews right now and I just browse what's on final orders right now. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at what's on final orders right now. Looking at Image, even a lot of what's on Image is superhero or superhero adjacent, right? Magic Order. That looks interesting. No One's getting a second printing. Awesome. Rogue Sun. What is Terror War? That sounds interesting. Written by Solid and Ahmed. Here I am doing research for my next video, right? And I think this is another issue with comics is that we got to do this to figure out what's coming out. And in order to even have the opportunity to buy it, you got to know about it like months in advance. I think that's kind of crazy because if I'm a kid who might be interested in Ben Mortara, right? The only way I know this book exists is like if I walk into the store and it's on the shelf. But what's the likelihood a shop owner is going to see this and order enough of it for it to even be on a shelf? Unless they've got a really savvy comic buyer, because they can't really do that when every book that we know is going to sell is like some huge superhero book. But I mean, I don't know. Part of that's just like the way the market works. But I think, again, that's kind of just the problem with having the direct market as opposed to comics being a generalized or generally available product, a mass marketed product. Comics are marketed to a lot of people, but they're not marketed to a lot of different people. And so it's like the tastes of a few kind of dictate what's going to be out there. And a lot of what's out there is superheroes. I mean, obviously, if I'm in the Marvel section, I'm going to see superheroes. But like if I scroll down to this like general comics and graphic novels, Ben Mortara is here, Witch's Shadow. So this is where we start getting like the variety, the diversity in types of storytelling, whether it's licensed media like Blade Runner, or like horror stuff, cartoon puppet horror theater. That just sounds hilarious. But yeah, like stuff like this is again kind of getting into like the niche of a niche of a niche, and it's difficult to you know stand any of these books up on their own. And so what happens is the shop just orders two or three for the two or three people that are willing to go to the previews website and scroll through and say, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. So you just end up in that same sort of circle where the same stuff is always going to be what's available because the same people are the ones buying it, and so on. Which brings it right back to Javon's point here. There's content available for everyone, but the comics aren't the problem, it's the marketing. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, comic book publishers and creators kind of have to be accountable for that. Honestly, I think a lot of it is just lifting up smaller titles with more varied content, delivering dope stories with people that might like it without them searching all over the place. Yeah. I buy comics for the cover, so if the I don't like, I don't buy. That's fair. I think comics is one of the very few things that's left that's almost like a word of mouth type thing. A big part of keeping the interest is for us to share our love of comics. Yeah, yeah, but like, here's the thing. Like, I don't work for Marvel or DC or Image or whomever, right? I don't even work for YouTube, right? I provide content to YouTube for them to monetize as they see fit and give me a little bit of a percentage of it. Um, it is not my job to be the marketing department for any of these companies, right? And, as the collective of comic book YouTubers and fans or whatever, like, yeah, we can spread the word, but like the average fan cannot be expected to do what I'm doing. And heck, I can't even always do what I'm doing because it's not like we're getting paid for it, not in any sort of like real meaningful way. Those of us who do this, who like comment on comics and try to promote and spread the word, like we're doing it for the love of it because we don't want to see, stuff just kind of go to the market and die. But like, I don't know, I guess that's how all media works, right? Like if you like watching Abbott Elementary, you tell your friends, but you don't have to like start a whole media empire just to tell your friends, just to keep the show on the air. You can just talk to people. And because everybody's got a TV, they're like, "Oh yeah, well I'll tune into that." But with comics, there's so much effort involved in just making a fan because to buy comics, you got to go to this specialty store or go to this special website, and you got to know the cadence. You got to know, okay, well, Batman's going to come out this week, the second Tuesday of the month, but it's not going to come out the third Tuesday and or Wednesday or Tuesday because now it's 2 different days. And so, yeah, yeah, the marketing. I feel like this just keeps coming up to, you know, it just keeps coming down to the marketing. What about a staff picks section? It might be a good way to dedicate self space to comics that fall outside the usual superhero content. The comic shop as curator, not just supplier. Yeah, my shop has a staff picks section as well. Um, and I I don't know how well it works, right? Like my comic shop has a front table, so like you come in, it's like, okay, all the stuff you're looking for is at this front table, and if you go past this front table, you're like a real fan, and you're willing to like browse and spend time and peruse and so on. So like the graphic novels are further back in the store, the toys are a little bit away from some of the other stuff. The back issues are in like the back corner, and it works that way. And then the staff picks are like somewhere in the middle near the counter, and I don't see that section get frequented a lot because I think the problem is that the person walking into the comic shop already knows what they want because it's such a diehard audience, and we don't have like just random passerbys necessarily walking in. So yeah, you'll get two or three people who trust the shop owner or the clerk to say, "Oh, you like this book? Okay, I'll buy this one as well then." But that also requires that clerk or shop owner to order 10, 12 of those books in advance and then say, "I know that I can sell these to so and so who doesn't even have this on their pull list, but they'll buy it because they like this and so they'll like that." So now you make your comic shop your comic dealer. you know? But I mean, the staff pick section definitely it exists and I like it. Like I like being able to go to a comic shop and the clerk is like almost like a librarian. But then that also just turns into hours of conversation. And it's like that's not conducive to a great retail environment. Like, because if you're a comic clerk, what hopefully is happening is that the shop is full of people and you serve one person and then you quickly get to the next person so that you can, fill up your register for the day. But I mean, that's not really happening either. But Bunk says, speaking of Abbott, my friend told me I'm Jacob from that show, and I'm really upset how accurate that is at times. That's hilarious, only because I watched that show and I love it. What are your ideas for marketing to an outsider? I mean, you got to be where people are, right? So sometimes it's as simple as like running Facebook ads, like with a little comic teaser or whatever. I think like what James Gunn did, right? When he announced all his movies, he announced them with specific shots or stills from comics or the comics that they were inspired by. Um, that's great. Maybe like adding that little spot to the TV commercial. You're gonna have a TV commercial for Black Adam, right? So instead of just putting this Black Adam box set for those interested in the film in the comic shop, right? Have your commercial for Black Adam and then put a picture of this box set, or a picture of these 3 trades. Put that in the commercial and say, order this, and see what happens. I think if people knew comics existed, they'd buy them. Especially like in this age, like for me, what I find refreshing about comics is that I can disconnect from like the outside world while I'm reading the comic. Like I'm not on my phone, I'm not interrupted by a TV commercial. It's just me and this book. So like as a parent, I would love it if my kid was into comics as opposed to like on TikTok watching nonsense, right? Um and so I think if people knew comics existed, they'd make more of an effort to buy them. But so many people that I talk to, like just in real life, are like surprised that comic book shops are still a thing, that comics come out in the frequency that they do. They just assume that when they aged out of the comic book buying audience from when they were kids, that comics stopped existing. It's kind of the way they talk about comics. So there's got to be more awareness. I think there should be more combos, actually. I don't believe the LCS should be just a place of transactions, community spaces for dialogue, collaboration, convention, etc. Yeah, that's true as well. Like I think like one of the comic shops that I used to shop at back when I was working in an office, they would do like game nights. And so they had like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that, but you kind of have to walk through the comics to get to the games. And there's varying people have different opinions on whether or not that actually helps the comics. But what I love about YouTube is something that I don't always get in the comic shop, and that is dialogue among a bunch of people that like the same things that I like. Like I can talk to my shop owner all day, but there's always only like 2 or 3 other people in the shop. And so if the shop could find a way to like become the gathering spot, that certainly could help stoke and foster community and hopefully get more sales as well. Oh, that's cool. One of the best shops in our area has a community shop or community night, 5 to 7 nights of the week. Model might come in to sketch. There's a book club, a game night, a movie night. And we used to host our podcast there one night. It was a communal space. If it helps the comic shops, it helps the readers have a shop to buy from. Facts. So that's dope. So yeah, maybe we do have to like put more onus on the shops who participate in the direct market to make themselves a better destination outside of like the free comic book day or the Halloween comic fest, or that's about it. I love Abbott, my favorite show on network television. Look, I tell you guys every week that I don't watch TV, and then I turn around and watch Abbott Elementary on Hulu. That is like literally the only TV show I watch. That's how good it is. It gets me to watch TV. I was so mad when I found out it didn't come out this week. Wizard used to do Palmer's Picks, and he would consistently put readers onto obscure new books of varying genres, old and new. He broke a lot of legends in that column. I missed that. Yeah, comic book trade magazine. That'd be cool. More dope wrestling comics would probably help make comics better. Word. Comic Joe says, if you talk to older comic readers, they're not that welcoming. At times, I think they don't want comics mainstream. That's an absolute fact. I've walked in on so many conversations where it's like, it's just a condescending tone. It's like the one guy is just is waiting for like a gotcha moment to like prove that you don't know about comics as much as he does and so on. Yeah, no, that's definitely a thing. and I think that's just partially because you used to be like ostracized for reading comics. Comics weren't always cool, and so now that like the general public or the masses work in or want in to this cool little niche thing, you get protective over your thing. I get it. It's like when your favorite artist, like, all of a sudden gets discovered and everybody's listening to him. You're like, well, yeah, well, I was listening to Drake when he was still on Degrassi. And it's like, all right, cool. You want a cookie? Is that what you want? This channel helps to bring the community together, and your pickups I usually buy. Yo, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's what I hope this channel does for people, um, is bring the community together. And if I can, shine a spotlight on books that are cool and that people don't necessarily know about, and it makes them know about it and buy it, that's like the greatest compliment in the world to me. So yeah. When you haven't read 30 plus years of comics lore type beat. That was like your whole Hangout episode about gatekeeping. And yes, I'd love a thing. I'd love a cookie. Thanks for asking. Yeah, man, gatekeeping is weird. And we do that as fans. It's weird that, like, we get mad when a series that we love gets canceled, but then we also don't welcome new people into the hobby. Right? Like, there's a reason that Green Arrow is only slated for 6 issues so far, even though he's like had like a major TV show and all that. Right? There's a reason Static is getting greenlit for 6 issues at a time and not like, a whole big thing. And it's because the audience isn't as big as we like to think it is. And so, the only way to grow that is for us to kind of do our part, like put people on, be helpful. You see somebody at the store, you see them pick something up, be like, yo, that's dope. But if you like that, grab this. I was at the shop Tuesday afternoon, and there was a guy in there. He was clearly like on his lunch break from work or something, because he had his suit on, he had his work badge, and he was picking up he picked up an America Chavez variant cover, and then he mistakenly grabbed my pile on the counter. And I was like, oh no, those are mine. And so he sees me flipping through and he sees The Last Ronin. And I'm like, oh yeah, The Last Ronin. This Ninja Turtle. I said, yo, basically all of the Ninja Turtles are dead except this one. And this dude, like, is basically trying to get revenge on the folks that took out his family. And he's like, yo, that sounds dope. He's like, is this the first issue? I'm like, nah, this isn't the first issue. Actually, this is a whole different series, but trade's over there, right? If more of us do stuff like that, then we get people into the hobby, and like Skip said, we get to keep the comic shop and we get to keep buying comics. Is Marvel continuity too scary for new readers? I jumped into halfway through the Krakoa era, didn't know what was going on, and held all the X books hostage. I think that's just a problem with continuity in general, or heavily leaning on continuity in general. Absolutely. I think that most gatekeeping is really just people not wanting their favorite characters drastically changed, like the Tim Drake book. There's worse gatekeeping, but that's the main type I see. So yeah, I was talking about gatekeeping on like the local shop level, and like just the sort of snootiness that a lot of fans have toward potential fans. There's a different conversation to be had about fans and outrage toward creators for changes being made to characters, right? Like, I've been pretty vocal about my distaste for the John Ridley Black Panther run. And it was funny because I did my review, and I kind of reviewed the series month to month. And then I did like my final thoughts, and I was like, yeah, man, I really hate like the way this run went. And then Bunkmaster B goes in the comments, and it's even as I was recording the video, I give the little overview, like, hey, this is what happens, and this happens, and this happens. And then I say, like, on its face, like, that all sounds like great ideas. That all sounds like a fun and interesting story. And if I'm honest, that it is, right? The part that made it disappointing to me was Black Panther is one of my favorite characters, and he wasn't acting in a way that I thought he should act. Does that mean the story was bad? No. There are people in the comment section of that video who loved that run, or at least enjoyed it, right? And so like, whose opinion is right? All of us are right, right? Is it helpful at all for me to like go on a tangent and be like what if I made a video that was like John Ridley's the worst writer to ever write a comic ever and he should be stoned, right? Like that's not helpful. That's not making any changes happen. John Ridley's not going to see it. If he did see it, he's not going to care, right? Worse things have happened in real life to people. So, yeah, I I don't know. I don't even know if we can call that gatekeeping because the people who are complaining don't own the gate. Like you're not the gate. So like we're not keeping us yelling on the internet is not keeping anybody out of a Marvel editorial office. It's just not. So I don't even know if we call that. I would consider that gatekeeping. I think gatekeeping is like when someone with access says, "Oh, nah, this ain't for you." You know. Another problem is the lack of less popular characters like Question, Etrigan, Booster Gold, Hawkman, etc. I mean, the dawn of DC definitely um seems to be trying to address that. We'll see how successful it is. I can understand for a long time reasons to be protective of their favorite characters. They grew up with them, and all of a sudden they're changed for an audience. They don't care. Um, yeah, like to say the audience doesn't care is like that's not on us to say. Like, I guess if the argument is, well, if this particular audience that is being catered to cared about being catered to, the books would sell more. It'd be like a runaway success. I guess that's an argument, but then it's like we don't even have sales numbers to really discuss this with. Kamar, yo, hope you're well. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Nice to catch you on stream. They don't own the gate, but they have funded the gate. So a business has to have customers, right? And businesses keep customers by satisfying their customers. If a customer is unsatisfied enough, they will stop buying comics. The company will then see, or buying the product, whatever the product is. The company sees, oh snap, my sales are down. Maybe I shouldn't have changed the Coke formula. Let's change it back. They change it back, people start buying it again, right? The like markets do that. Companies go up and down and have peaks and valleys, right? As someone who markets products and stuff for a living, like I I'm fully aware of that. But there are also other like factors. There are other functions of marketing. It's not enough to just please your current audience. Because if you're not growing as a business, you're dying, especially if you're a publicly traded company, right? Stocks can't stay stable. If they did, there's no point in making an investment, right? So if all I'm doing is catering to the same old people who I already have, who are already diehard fans, then my channel doesn't grow. My bottom line doesn't grow because they're gonna buy, no matter how many of them you are, how many of them there are. Let's say there are 1,000 comic fans. Those 1,000 comic fans make up $1 million in revenue, right? So let's just say they're all spending $1,000 a year. That's their budget. They're never going to spend more than $1 million a year collectively. Okay, cool. Well, that's fine. That means I'm making a decent profit on what I've got. But if I want to grow, if I want to take my business to new heights, if I want to hire some new hotshot writer, if I want to do X, Y, and Z, I gotta find a way to reach beyond those 1,000 people that are spending $1 million a year, right? So I can look and say, okay, well, how do I find more people like them? Well, by doing the same, by putting out the same, by maybe marketing it on a different channel or whatever, right? Or I can say, well, there are people that are similar to them but have something distinctively different. Let's market to them. What if there was a black Batman? Right? Does that work or does it not? I think that really depends on the medium. I don't think the comics book direct market is built in a way that allows for sustainable outreach or meaningful outreach, because the audience is kind of baked into the business model. And so it just becomes more and more niche. We keep coming up on the same 3 points in this argument or this debate, this conversation. This is why marketing is so important. There are characters everyone would love, but some people don't even know about comics or care about them yet. Right. And so, like, for me as a marketer, like I did a video on my other channel about finding your target audience, right? And there's 3 questions that I recommend every business owner ask, right? Who likes me? Why do they like me? And where are the rest of them, right? If you can identify who your audience is, what their likes and dislikes are, why you fit into their likes and dislikes, and then you can kind of say, like, all right, well, based on what they like, other people that might like what I have to offer should be also in these places. Well, then you can just go out to those places and pick up on people, right? You don't even have to like do like a lot of heavy selling, because they'll see what you're doing. They're already interested because they have interests that line up with what you do, and they'll jump on board, right? In other instances, though, if you it can be like, okay, well, what audience do I want to have, right? Maybe there's a high percentage of a certain immigrant population coming in, right? Okay, well, what is that population like? Because that's an untapped market. Nobody is speaking to those people, you know? So if I can be the first to jump in this opportunity pool, I can now monopolize a market. I can be the early adopter. I can have a head start. And by the time the other companies come in and try to talk to these people, I've already got them locked into contracts, whether I'm the first person to offer fiber optic cable or whatever. You know how hard it is to get somebody to change their cell phone carrier, right? Like, they've already built their habits by the time somebody else jumps on it. So, like, are comic book companies wrong for trying to cater to people or go after people who had traditionally been left out of the conversation before in hopes that some of them will stay? No, that's just smart business. Now, you got to evaluate whether or not that strategy is working after a while. But I mean, the data shows that the comic book uh, population, the comic book market, has largely held stable. There's a part of a decline, but it's not like declining enough to be like, oh, the sky is falling, let's do something different. It's fairly stable. Now we get this anecdotal evidence that comic shops are closing, right? But comics aren't just sold in comic shops. So, yeah, man. Yeah. Will Dennis says that's a huge part of the problem, the lack of marketing or market sales research. I've worked in comics for 25 years and can count on one hand the times I've seen market research or even legit sales numbers. It's been a huge frustration, no doubt. No other industry works like that. Yeah, that's insane. If people aren't, if comic publishers aren't doing market research, that is a problem. Like, that's a huge problem because, again, for me, speaking as a marketer, marketing, in my estimation, is like 95% of a business's activity, right? Everything in a business serves to get the product to the customer. If you don't even know how many customers you have, if you don't know how many potential customers are out there, how do you know how much of a thing to make? How do you know what thing to make? How do you know where to, promote that thing? So that's wild if they're not doing market research. Will says, imagine being a movie producer who can't tell you how their movie did on Monday morning. That's insane. That's insane. Like, to be working in comics and not have a working knowledge of the sales numbers for a product that comes out weekly, that's insane. Because by the time you do cancel a book, let's say it is doing poorly, does it take 18 months to know if a book is not doing well? I've heard stories of comic book writers saying, hey, yeah, this book got canceled. It was supposed to be 6 issues. And they told me after issue 1 that it was going to get canceled at issue 3. So people know, somebody knows, they should, I would hope. But I mean, Will literally works in comics and is saying that's not the case. People don't know. People are flying blind. And if that's the case, then maybe comics are more doomed than I thought. Will, man, get me a job. Somebody hire me to be a marketer at a comic company. Then again, maybe it doesn't pay well enough. And maybe the company is not stable enough. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not trying to end this conversation on such a down note. Gosh, that just really just felt like comics are doomed. But I think what we've landed on is that the direct market as a business model has to shift. We've got to reach outside of the direct market if we want to reach more people and hopefully grow the industry as opposed to maintaining it. We want to make sure we're doing things that are innovative. We probably should cut down on events, even though events clearly sell, and that's why they keep doing them, right? We want to make sure that, I don't know, what is enjoyable to a fan, like someone who's already a fan, is not what's going to get a new person interested. I came into comics during House of X and Powers of 10, which I now know is like the biggest comic event in the last 10 years, right? So, and I got in because comics were exciting. Maybe I got in at just the right time, for me. But I do see this weird balancing act between pleasing the people you already have on your side and trying to find new people to bring in. Because these events, they annoy the heck out of me, but they get people excited. Absolute Carnage worked, So it's a weird balancing act. And what you find, I can't remember where I saw this quote, but basically most balance is an illusion. And the people that you see that appear to be balanced are typically people that you meet in the middle on their way to one extreme or the other. I don't remember where I heard that quote, but I heard it very recently. And maybe comics can't be balanced. So maybe the answer is just for us who enjoy comics to keep spread the word about what we enjoy, why we enjoy it, and, inviting people into the conversation. So I think there's plenty of tools out there, and Will's alluding to it now. Will, maybe we'll have to have you on. Maybe we'll just talk offline. But I think there are so many ways to reach people. And maybe it's just that, the powers that be aren't all savvy on them yet, right? They didn't grow up with YouTubers in the house. But I think even if comics isn't in the best place, I think society is in the place where comics can be the ultimate disruptor, right? Everybody's connected, everybody's streaming, everybody's doing everything, comics can be that great escape. I think we're in a good spot. There's a lot of potential. And that's where we'll leave it. I think comics will continue being dope. And I think you guys are going to keep reading them. So thank you guys for having this discussion with me. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And it's the end of the night. I'm getting all congested and stuff. So I'm gonna end this. I'm trying to find a cool thing to say to wrap up. And I'll probably just leave it like Comics Joe left it. Stay humble and find things to enjoy. Yeah, man. I hope you enjoyed it. We got more videos coming out on the channel soon. We do this every Thursday at about 7 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully you can join us live next time as well. Until then, man, stay safe, be well, and make sure you read something dope today. Peace.